Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Dear Baseball Gods episode 63, and I'm here with the first ever, the three-peater. I don't know if that means that you're like really cool or really lame that you're on my podcast three times, but we're back with Kevin Vance, pitching coach at the University of Rhode Island, and Kevin was a former teammate of mine. We were in the bullpen, both like making making our innings messier when we would go in them back in 16 with Long Island. And Kevin's background, you were a Birmingham Baron, Double A with the White Sox, and you're drafted originally by the Diamondbacks, though, right?
Other way
Right? I
around.
got that backwards. That's right. You caught on the tail end of your career when you were almost off to the glue factory with the D-backs. But Kevin's now the pitching coach at University of Rhode Island. This is your third year there, so you guys are in the thick of it in the fall, huh? October 30th.
Yeah, we're right into we finished our fall season and we're into our individual segment, so we're kind of crushing the lifts a little bit more. And most of the pitchers, all of them, pretty much all of them except one or two, are shut down, building that base, getting in the weight room and crushing arm care and stuff like that. It's actually I actually really enjoy this time of year because it's more individual focused. We're able to get with guys in kind of one-on-one settings as opposed to the whole team. It's a little more time to do stuff. So yeah, we're right into it right now.
That's cool. So, recap last year. I know you guys had a couple drafts, right? So, how did the Major League Draft treat the Rhode Island? What are you guys again? The Shuckers or
We're the Rams.
Huskers or
Come on,
catfishermen?
man.
Huh?
We're the Rams.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Rams Nation.
Rams Nation. All right. How many Rams were drafted last year?
We had one drafted last year. Um, yeah, making sure I'm getting that right. Yeah, we had one pitcher. He actually went to the White Sox. I think it was 20th round. He was our closer, Nick Johnson, and he actually went to the team that I started with, Great Falls, and won a championship, just like his coach did
Oh,
in
you
his first
guys.
year.
you,
So it was cool though, because he was with most of the same coaches and rovers and stuff. So just talking with him, like, hey, how's this guy doing? And it was cool just to kind of reliving my life through him a little bit. So it
yeah.
was cool.
But you guys had a pretty
We had
young staff last year, though, right?
we had a younger team. We had a pretty experienced staff. We had three guys sign in the Frontier League too, three pitchers. So it's they were seniors. We had those three guys, as you know, because you were kind of similar. They were seniors, experienced. I think they all have the ability and to pitch an affiliated ball for sure. Like our Friday guy, he pitched for Traverse City. Our big time bullpen guy, he pitched for Traverse City too. They both had really good years, and then our Sunday guy pitched for Gateway this summer too. So they three guys in indie ball had good summers, and then one affiliated. But so it was a pretty veteran staff, which kind of makes my job easy. They they know what they're doing. They have their routines, and um, it was a little not easier. I mean, we were still working hard and making adjustments, but they it was a little less of the not holding hands, but the stuff that you got to teach freshmen because they're wearing as many.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into that because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. We were talking off camera about how, with all our fall practice season, we didn't have a fall game schedule with our travel teams. But, we had long practices on Sundays. We had 4-hour practices. And at the end of it, we did some pretty hard conditioning and the kids were kind of worn out. They're 14 to 16. And we said, hey, like this is, if you want to play college baseball, this is a pretty standard, like Monday practice. Like you practice, 3 to 5 hours pretty much every day. Your game days are 8 hours because you're there at the field so early, and then you're usually cleaning up later unless you're like a big time program where you don't have to do that stuff. But so like, what do you teach freshmen, and how do they adjust when they get to campus?
A lot of it is just getting organized. It's the first time they're away from home. Obviously, they have class basically 8 a.m. to noon. and then we'll have lift after that, and then a couple hours of practice, and then in between all that, you gotta study and take care of business. So a lot of it is getting them organized, getting them to use their phone. Like, they always have their phone in their hand, and there's a calendar on your phone. So that's kind of the main thing. Honestly, it sounds dumb, but like, put everything in your phone, like reminders, and just being there, because half of it is knowing where you need to be, because guys can get overwhelmed. It's a lot. They have academic meetings. They get a ton of support there. So it's academic meetings, lift, practice, class, studying. And at the same time, being college kids, hanging out with the guys. And so it's getting organized, I think, is the big thing, because you can get overwhelmed really quickly.
And then as far as teaching them to be collegiate level athletes, so I remember my coach, he was wise. Like, no one thought he was, but he was wise. And he'd just say, like, in the first fall, he wouldn't really tinker with guys too much, because usually they would just sort of brush him off because they're the best player in their county or their state as a high school senior. And so anything he said wouldn't stick anyway. But come the spring, when they're still like pitching up in the zone at 86 miles per hour and they're just getting shelled, or they're hitting 180, then they start to listen to coach a little more. So what do you guys do in the fall? Do you feel like kids are kind of resistant to coaching at first? Or I'm sure there's a continuum, obviously, of personalities and coachability, but what's the typical freshman? How do they adjust baseball wise?
That's good. That's a really good question. I think I kind of, this year, Fish and I, we kind of changed our view on that. I think my first year was, I showed up, I didn't know anyone. So there was a lot of, all right, let me see who you are. Even the recruits, like, I never saw them come in, because I got the job a couple weeks before the fall started. So I didn't have any clue, even what, as a coach, like, I was like, what do I do? I'm a coach now. So it was more of just watching and kind of letting them fail. I think this fall, it's my third fall, and we got into it more a little bit in terms of, mechanical adjustments for the freshmen right away. Because, not to sound arrogant or anything, but it's, if there's a glaring thing mechanically, like, that they got away with in high school, I know that they're not going to do well in college. So we started kind of, we still let them fail a little bit, not try and change them too much for the first couple weeks. But after that, it was, we get right into it. Like, hey, let's make this adjustment now in the fall, so we don't have to go through these growing pains in the spring, because that matters. The spring matters. That's going on on the website, and it's affecting if we win or not. So we jumped right into it for, a lot of different stuff, a lot of the same base in terms of the mechanical stuff, but we jump right into it in terms of making adjustments. And so then they could feel themselves do it in a game, or an inter squad. And because it's different, like, making an adjustment in a bullpen or like in a flat ground, it's pretty easy, but you got to be able to do it in the game. So I think that was kind of a big step for us in terms of just saying, all right, we know they're going to fail it, so let's get ahead of it. And kind of, I think the guys bought in. There wasn't any, I struck everyone out in high school. None of that. It was, we explained it to them. They understood it. It was a lot of the physical stuff and it all relates to the weight room and the training room. So we kind of have all those aspects on board with the stuff that we're talking about, staying in your legs. How does the weight room movements relate to the mound? And how can we practice those in the weight room and then apply them to the mound? So it was kind of not just me and Fish talking to the guys, but, the guys in the weight room and in the training room talking about, what do your hips do? Why do they do this and why can't they do that? And kind of getting them on board. So I think the guys buy in. We spend a lot of time explaining. I think the guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about it, me and Fish, but just having meetings and talking about, how to stay in your legs. Instead of doing PFPs for an hour, we call them barn talks. While the position players are hitting, and kind of that time where, they say, hey, kickers go kick field goals. We go into the barn and we have like basically a lesson plan. And so the guys, they understand, I think they have a pretty good idea of how mechanics work, because, we educate them as much as we can at every aspect of it. So I think they buy in pretty quickly.
Yeah. So the question I was thinking of while you were talking. So number one, I know who Fish is, but explain to you keep saying Fish. Be like, who is this? Like, who is it? What is this Fish that he's referring to? So who's Dave Fischer?
Fish is my alter ego that I have.
Yeah, it's like a Fight Club situation.
So Fish is Dave Fischer, aka Coach Fischer. He was my teammate at UConn. He played for about 6 years too, professionally. He joined us last year. He was with the Twins last year. Actually, got released, and we had a spot open up, and I texted him like, "Hey man, you want to coach? Like, I don't know if you're done playing or not." Kind of the same situation that I was in the year before. And so Fish, he's a pitcher. He's a pitcher too. So that's kind of a unique deal for us. We have two pitching coaches in a sense. We work together. I guess I have the title of pitching coach, but by no means is it just me. We work together. We collaborate on things, and it's awesome to have. I can't even explain to you how great it is to have someone work with the pitchers with you. You can, if something I think of, he's sitting right next to me. Hey, Fish, what do you think about this? And then sometimes he says, I think that's a terrible idea. And then, we can scream and yell at each other. And then we finally get to, the good stuff, like the sweet spot and, the stuff that is going to work. So I've gotten a lot better as a coach. I think I've grown as a coach just from having another pitching coach around. And we're kind of completely different species almost. He's 6'6".
He's tall. He looks like an actual pitcher.
Yeah.
More like a gorilla or something. Yeah. For those of you who can't see, Kevin's a really like thick, strong dude, but he and I were both like similar body types, like not typical pitchers. Like if we had walked up and said we were like third baseman or second baseman, people would be like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense, but we're not tall enough to be pitchers. So
yeah.
It is what it
Hockey
is.
players.
Yeah. So here's my question to you. So you probably watched the postseason this year, right? At least some of it. I actually missed most. If I'm actually gonna not lie on camera, I didn't watch any of the World Series. I don't know why. I just was like really busy, and I don't know. I watched pretty much all of the division and the ALCS and NLCS. But anyway, the pitcher usage and the idea that pitchers are just like thrown in any old role in the postseason irks me. Number two, the idea that, we've both been relievers, and you know how it is when you pitch back-to-back days and then potentially 3 days in a row, how your stuff degrades. And to say that you're like the same Kevin Vance on the third day in a row that you're pitching as you are on day one is like kind of like patently false. Like you're just not the same person. You are, but so my question is, you see like Clayton Kershaw going out and pitching like 89 innings in a series, and you see all these other guys pitching over and over and over. And we saw in 2016 with Aroldis Chapman, like he pitched so much at the very end, he was just like throwing all sliders because he knew for a fact that he couldn't get people out with his 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Because like the way he usually pitches at 101 doesn't work at 97. So do you feel like when these freshmen come in and they were super successful in high school, basically probably being like Aroldis Chapman, a lot of these pitchers, I mean, you're throwing 88, 89 in high school, like I don't know how any kids hit that stuff. And so you learn to have, like you understand as a pitcher in high school, like I throw 88, I can just kind of hammer it down the middle. Kids are going to swing and miss. Like you don't have to be as fine until it doesn't work anymore. So do you feel like, my question is this, do you feel like pitchers can actually adjust strategically and like command-wise until they get just destroyed? Can they actually like do it before it happens? Like say you're throwing 90 to 92, like that was maybe typical you the last season, and now next season you show up and you're 87 to 89. Can you like make those adjustments before you've seen what happens if you pitch the same way at 90-92 as you did at 87-89? You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably not. It's tough. It is hard. I think you do have to fail. You got to get hit around a little bit. You kind of, in a sense, I guess you do become a different pitcher in college. Like you said, 88 is not getting hit ever in high school. So yeah, I think you have to rediscover yourself a little bit. I don't want to change their identity. More of a fine tuning of their identity. Some guys can still just let it eat, at 86, even 85, and just, they think their fastball is harder than it is. And there's something behind that. Like, they still have success, some guys, and, other guys, it doesn't work. They can get lit up. But I think it comes down to, their conviction in whatever it is. If they think that they're the best pitcher on the field, just like they did in high school, a lot of the times they're still going to have success. It's when they kind of lose their confidence and they lose their conviction that, that's when they start to get hit. I tell the guys all the time, like, it's okay to miss your spot, but make sure you miss it with conviction, right? Because a missed spot with conviction is that's not going to get hit as much as, a missed spot unconvicted. So it's a tough battle, but I never want them to lose their confidence. Overall, yeah, maybe you gotta learn a little bit, and you have to have a little adversity, but you got to find that edge of, competitiveness and whatever makes you release that ball with conviction. That's all that matters to me. Not all that matters, but it's really important.
Yeah, and I think
they will get stronger. Sorry, I think most guys can turn their 88 into 92 with just getting on a routine. Some of the guys don't. They've never had a routine, or they've never had a workout regimen. And they've never had access to all you can eat in the dining hall, which I think a lot of the guys need. Just putting on some mass, putting on some muscle, and then that's how you develop your stuff. And then we can fine tune all the mechanical stuff and, pitch development stuff. But, failing, yeah, it's good. It's a good learning experience, but I want all of our freshmen to come in and dominate as pitchers.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I just wonder if it's possible to like get ahead of that, instead of going into freshman year. And if there's a way to really sink it in, like, hey, it's like Clayton Kershaw pitches Monday, he makes X pitches, and then on Friday he pitches again, he's tired. Is there a way that he could know that I couldn't throw the same pitches I threw Monday? Like, they have to be the same pitches plus 20% better located or whatever it is, so that but it doesn't seem like it works that way. Just like subconsciously as a pitcher, I feel like you understand how you get outs, and it's tough to deviate from that plan until it just like it's blowing up in front of you, and then you're just really sad sitting in the bullpen being sad. But so what does the typical freshman look like physically when they come in? Because I get I got a question the other day on Instagram. Kid messaged me, and he's like, hey, blah blah, what can I do? I want to play D1 or D2 baseball. I'm a good utility player. I'm 5'11", 135, and I was like scratch the record, and like, no, like, you're not going to play Division 1 or Division 2 if you're 135 pounds, unless you're like a 6'4" runner. And I'm like, you got to put on a lot of weight really fast. So what is the typical? Give me like an outfielder's. Give me like a roadie outfielder, what a roadie infielder looks like, and what an average roadie pitcher looks like.
You want like height and weight, or?
Well, like just that, and just like if you made a composite, like an average, like is your average roadie pitcher 6'2", 180, and I don't know, like whatever. Because I think a lot of kids don't get this. Like, they just don't watch enough college baseball.
Just to give a perspective of
they just don't understand
physical and good they need to be.
Yeah.
So an outfielder, I think, basically if you got to run under a 7 to be an outfielder. You don't have to. I mean, you can if you really hit. So it's a range of things. You're a big bat in the outfield, and then you don't have to be as good of an outfielder. But you got to be, hitting home runs in high school and kind of dominating high school. That's kind of the first thing. Like if you want to play in college, especially Division I, you pretty much have to be able to dominate high school. Because if you can't dominate high school, then you're going to be below average in college. And not necessarily dominate to play in college, but you have to be one of the best players on your team to play in college, unless your team is, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if you're a good high school player, there's a place for you in college baseball. If you're hitting 9th and, hitting a $150 in high school, then it's probably not for you, which is fine. But so I guess I'd start there. Like if you're dominating high school and you're one of the best players on your team, then I think there's a place for you. But URI, man, this is a tough question to answer.
Yeah,
I think
infielder. It's hard to pin down. Like I know I went and watched one of our kids who is in junior college. I watched him pitch at the end of the summer, and it was the first time I'd seen him pitch since high school. It'd been like 8 or 9, I don't know, 9 months, whatever, but. That team, they're a really good junior college, but they were they were physical. Like I was surprised because junior college, like there are some very good junior colleges, and there's some very sloppy junior colleges that are kind of whatever. But this team was like very well built, and I was surprised at just how physical they looked. And I think a lot of high school kids would be too, because that whole team, like you don't see hardly 1 or 2 high school kids running around that look like as muscular and as strong as those kids looked, like top to bottom of the lineup. So,
yeah, like we have an outfielder who's probably 6'2". He's probably 180, 190, and he's an absolute burner. He ran a 6.45 at Scout Day. Crazy bat speed. He's a specimen. He's one of the best athletes and physical kids on the team as a freshman. We have a catcher who has a ton of pop. He's around a 2 probably pop time, but he's probably 230, and it's not fat. It's muscle. He's really physical. We have another outfielder who is pretty close in size. He's over 200 pounds. 6'2", 6'1", 6'2". Our pitchers, we have 6'3", up to 91, 88, 91. We got another pitcher who's a little more raw. He needs to put on some weight, but he's got a really live arm. He's up to 90 probably. He's kind of 85, 88 mostly, but he's probably, he might listen to this, so I don't want to offend him, but probably he's probably 6'3", 160.
I'll put this out there. Hey, friend, if you're listening, just put on some weight. Just own it. I mean, if people are going to guess that you're 140 and you're offended by that, then that's your own fault. I don't know who you are. I'm your friend in this, but put on some weight. If you don't like it, eat more. If you don't like it, play better. All right? That's this guy's mind. So, all right, carry on.
Yeah, so it ranges. I'm trying to think who else. We got another pitcher who's about my height, probably 180. But he's a real athletic. I don't really discriminate in terms of size, obviously, because I think that I was a good player. I enjoy having the undersized righties and the undersized lefties, and I think they got a little chip on their shoulder, so I appreciate that. But you still can't be. They're still physical. We got another recruit coming in next year. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about him when he hasn't signed, but just undersized. We have guys coming in way undersized, but still physical. And there's a difference. Like you could maybe be 135 if you're, like you said, a burner or like a strong, wiry, like really physical, not weak. So it's
Yeah,
not really a number; it's just strength and physicality.
Yeah, I remember when I told him that, and I immediately got this flashback because when I played college summer ball in Maryland, and our league was an okay league. It was called the Cowripkin Collegiate Senior League, but there was this team called the Maryland Orioles or the Yalsa's Orioles. Yalsa was like the scout who ran the team, but it was mostly high school players, if not all. Like who's the guy, one of the relievers from the Cubs? He's now in the Cubs. He was on that team. He was drafted by the Red Sox. He was throwing 96 out of high school. He was on that team. So they were a good team because they were like all like the best draftable prospects from like the Maryland tri-state area. So it was like a really good team. But anyway, there's a kid on there who was probably 135 pounds, but he played short. He was just like ultra smooth. I think he ended up being like a second round draft pick. So obviously like there's guys out there, but at the same time, you know, this young man, he really nice kid. I wish him the best, but he was like, you know, I haven't gotten contacted by many schools. So there's a difference between I'm 135 pounds and no one's looking at me, and I'm 135 pounds and every major league team has had me over for dinner.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference. Like this kid was like a premium athlete because you looked at him like, wait, because, you know, like the guys as we watch this team, like, oh yeah, that kid's getting drafted. That kid throws 95. That kid does this. That kid, they said he might be like a first rounder. I'm like, wait, you mean that kid? That little kid? The kid who like looks like a little brother? Like someone just gave him a uniform? They're like, yeah. And then you watch him and you try to like figure it out and you're like, yeah, oh yeah. He like gets to every ground ball and he's like super fast and he's just got like a really nice swing and when he puts on 40 pounds, he's probably gonna be legit. So yeah, the recruiting world's interesting. So when you sign one of these kids and you know they're coming to Rhody in a year or 2 years, what happens next? Like what's the plan? I mean, do they have to eat lots of hamburgers? Like what do you guys tell them that they need to show up looking like on first day of school?
Yeah, we stay in contact with them throughout it. You know, I think the signing day is coming up in 2 weeks. So after that, we'll be able to do a little bit more with them. Like, you know, I think we can send them a workout plan, you know, throwing program, stuff like that. That's when we're allowed to kind of start sending them more stuff. But, you know, you kind of talk to them and, you know, you can ask them, what are you doing for workouts? And, you know, if it's, we try and get them into the right hands. Like if we have connections in the area of, you know, like places to work out, like just kind of give them suggestions and stuff to do. But yeah, it's, each guy's different. Like there's some guys where, you know, they'll commit to us and they'll go, all right, like you got to start eating, you know, let's go, you know, start working out.
Would it be a recruiting violation if you, like every morning they just open up their door to go to school and there's just like McDonald's big breakfast, just like sitting there, just anonymous? Yes, yeah, they look around.
Definitely illegal.
They open their locker and like protein bars.
I'm gonna get in trouble on this podcast.
That's your tactic, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think we want the guys to come to games and come to practices still and watch college baseball. You know, come up to practice and just watch, because that's important. Just see how the guys work. You know, come to lifts and watch that just to see what it takes. Because, you know, you can talk about it as much as you want throughout the recruiting process and, you know, whatever, this is what we have to offer you. But until they actually come and see it, which they all do, you know, you can't really, they'll never get a real feel for it until they see it. So yeah, we want them to come out and watch games, and that's important.
How do they feel like they adjust to school? Because it goes like from 0 to 60 pretty fast. And like my college, we didn't do like 6 a.m. pool workouts, but we did 6 a.m. sprinting workouts and strength conditioning, all that stuff. Run me through like a typical day for a new freshman. Start at 4 a.m. They're still sleeping.
Okay.
So, then they stop. Then they stop sleeping. Then what happens?
Okay, so I'll go through a Monday of this week. Wake up at hopefully before their class to get breakfast. That's important. Nutrition, you got to get that meal in. Get out of bed, set your alarm you live with a baseball player, make sure you guys are waking each other up for class, get to breakfast, go to class. It kind of ranges every day. You could have no classes on one day. You could have 5 in a row on one day. So, you're in class, you better be there, because sometimes I check. I'm the academic liaison, so sometimes I'll walk up and I think as soon as the first guy sees me, it's in the group text already. To like, hey, coach is checking class, make sure you're there. But you gotta go to class. I'll just leave it at that. And then we usually
let me butt in. You guys typically, they have to organize their schedule in a certain way, right, to make it fit with classes and all that kind of stuff. Like what kind of constraints are put on them for all that?
Yeah, so we get priority registration, so you can veterans apply and then athletes apply. So we get basically second choice after a few of the vets that are at school. But we try and get our guys in the fall to take classes and be done before 2:00. So a normal student, they have the luxury of night class, afternoon class. We don't, unless it's, you're a senior and you have one class left and it's only offered in the afternoon. But other than that, it's you gotta be done by 2, because that's when we lift. So we'll lift at 2. And then after that, we usually go right out to the field for practice. We want the guys coming into the barn and doing their arm care and getting their mobility in, their early work. And then we'll kind of, it's different every day. We'll play catch. We always try and have a certain amount of time, over a half hour for the guys to play catch. And so they're not rushed through catch. They can take their time, play quality catch, and get some dry work in, and, get their flat grounds in. And that's the time to get better, they're playing catch. And then team defense type of thing. And then, first and thirds, bump plays, all that really fun stuff that we all love doing. And then usually the position players will break up and kind of do their own thing. And then, we'll have a barn talk, and we'll talk about psychopaths or something crazy like that.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned this the other night. Tell me about the psychopath stuff. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of on a kick right now with psychopaths. So Coach Fish, he does a lot of the mental stuff. So he talks to the guys about being in the moment and, controlling what you can control and all that stuff. And I started listening to this book, The Wisdom of Psychopaths. And it kind of talks about the positive traits of psychopaths. And not, it kind of throws aside like, not all psychopaths are axe murderers and scum of the earth. It talks about psychopaths in really high up positions in all walks of life and why they're there. And they have a lot of psychopathic traits, but they're non-violent. So they're not serial killers. So it's kind of
can you define it for me? Define psychopath, because it has such a negative.
Yeah.
It has such a negative connotation. Like you just think, like just axe or chainsaw.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Define psychopath.
Yeah, so like emotionless decision making. They live in the now. They're actually. It talks about how they're naturally close to like Zen Buddhists without actually training it. So that was pretty cool. I mean, they have kind of no remorse, which is obviously more of like a killer type aspect. But I brought up like, if you throw a fastball at like a 2-seam in and he fouls it off his knee, like, what are you going to throw the next pitch? And it's like another one. And that's like no remorse. Like that's like kind of psychopathic. And so a lot of the traits that psychopaths have, it's applies to pitching, like Max Scherzer is definitely, he has a little psychopath in him, and he kind of expresses it outwardly, but not everyone, there's quiet psychopaths too, but I think a psychopath has a ton of mental toughness, and a ton of self-worth. Like, they're narcissistic, and those are traits that you need as a pitcher. You got to be you got to be a narcissist. You have to think you are the best pitcher on the planet when you're doing it, and truly believe it. So I think that's it. Like emotionless, pitch to pitch, living in the now, no remorse for the hitter, incredible amounts of self-worth, mental toughness. And so that's kind of, those are the positive traits, you know, of psychopaths. And, you know, it talks about like presidents who have psychopathic traits. There's one pretty relevant.
Right yeah. Our president's horrible. But anyway, go on.
Not to get political, but he's pretty. Talk about a narcissist.
Well, we should talk about this for a second, because I don't know what your opinion is. I don't have a political. I really don't have a political opinion, because, and I don't think most Americans, when, like, say for example, Trump's applying tariffs, I don't think most Americans, in fact, I would guarantee, they don't really know what the ramifications of that is. I don't. Do you? Like, do you know, like, if long term this tariff stuff is going to help or hurt us? I have no idea. It could be a great decision. It could be a terrible decision. I really don't know. And I'm sure the common American doesn't. Do they?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, like, with all that stuff, I really am kind of just like, the verdict's out for me on some of the stuff that he's doing. But the verdict's not out on the fact that he's just, like, the worst human being, like, ever. And he's just like, hey, here's another example of how horrible I am. Yeah, you never want your kids to be like the president now. Like, look, it's just like every day. It's just a circus. But as far as politically, I don't know. But personally, oh, the man's just horrifying.
Yeah, he'd probably, if he had any like physical talent, he'd probably be a pretty good pitcher if he had a good arm, because he loves himself. And
well, he commented on the World Series the other day. That was, yeah. Thanks, Don. yeah. We should all just comment, hey, you should have left that pitcher who was doing great in. Why'd you put that guy in who did terrible? Like, idiot. That's basically what he said. Like, all right,
yeah.
Thanks, backseat driver. Like, that makes, yeah, hindsight's cool. Did you take many philosophy classes in college?
Not really. I wasn't a philosophy major like you. I didn't. I wish I did, but
the psychopath thing reminds me of philosophical zombies. So I don't know if they'd study that in like an entry-level course, but basically I can't remember which philosopher talked about it, but he basically said that there are zombies that walk amongst us, and they're not the same as psychopaths, but it sounds very, very similar. But basically a zombie from the philosophical standpoint is just a person who inside is just dark. They're just dead inside. So they like, if they hurt somebody, they act remorseful. They'll like fit in with social situations. They'll do all the things that a normal human being does because they know, they've seen it, that they know that they should act that way. But deep down, they never have any sympathy, empathy, any like real of the genuine like rich emotions that a human being has. But they act like they do. But really inside, they're just black, like they just don't have it. Like they don't feel it. And to me, that it seems interchangeable with a psychopath. But that's just kind of what that sprung back into my mind, where I know I've met people where I'm like, I just feel like you've never felt bad about anything you did in your entire life. Like I just kind of tell like everything they do is they're faking, and that they're just like not a person. And that was kind of what, like, that sounds really terrible, but I feel like we've all met someone that could potentially be a philosophical zombie, aka a psychopath. That's probably just like a synonym, but anyway, I digress. So what else do you guys do on the mental side?
We do a lot of breath work. Coach Fish is we call him the mental coach, because he's had a lot of struggles in his career mentally, so he's kind of worked through those, and he's really good at having the guys work through it. So we have it's called the Regroup Breath. We do a ton of breathing exercises, and we just got done with our first chapter 1 of, mental training and changing your perception. So we did that yesterday, talking about, hey, how can we flip change our perception on things? A good example is it's a beautiful rainy day. Coach Fish always says that, how can you take a positive and flip it or a negative and flip it into a positive, and how that relates to, pitching. It's bases loaded, no outs. let's change our perception on this. It's not we're screwed here. This is going to be awesome when I strike out the side and get out of this. Everyone's gonna be like, damn, how'd you do that? That's what we need to be thinking. And you do it one pitch at a time, obviously, but that's our mindset and training that. And, we do have concentration grids, which kind of, we'll have the guys go in, and I don't know if you've done those, but it's, 1 through 100 on a just randomized on a grid. And, you cross off 0 to 100 and you kind of go as fast as you can. And we do that. And we've had times where we have the whole pitching staff.
What does that
do? A concentration grid. So it's
present or what?
Yeah, it keeps you present. So like you're throughout it, you're looking for number one, and then you start to panic and you feel it, and then you got to put it aside and just focus. All right, where's one? And then, where's two? And then we kind of throw some wrenches in it. We'll have, 4 guys going at once on the grid, and then the rest of the pitching staff yelling at the top of their lungs and banging bats on the pole, and saying personal stuff about them. Gets a little out of hand sometimes, but it's fun though. That part of it's fun, but it does help, I think, being able to remove negative thoughts and focus on the task at hand. And that's what it's all about in terms of pitching. And we can train ourselves to do that. Train ourselves to be functioning psychopaths on the mound.
Well, and with pitch selection, one of the things I talk about with especially our younger kids, I'm like, hey, all right, you just threw a curveball and the guy looked like really, really ugly. Like, what do you throw next? Like, just throw the same pitch again. I'm like, and the way I relate it to them, I'm like, you're facing like a boss in a video game. Like, how do you defeat like the boss? You figure out that he has like one weakness, like you have to like shoot him in the throat or something, and then he starts to like react. Like you shoot him everywhere else and nothing happens. You're like, oh no. You hit him once in his like weak spot, you figure it out, and then what do? You just like keep shooting in that same spot until he dies, and then you like go to the next level. Like, hitters will tell you what they can't hit, and if you throw a pitch and they look really ugly, don't make it more complex than it has to be, and just do the same thing until it looks like it's not going to work again. Like,
we had we scrimmaged this fall. We can play outside competition now, so we played outside competition, and we had freshmen go early in the game, and it was, I think, every single 0-1 count or every count where they were ahead. It was just automatic breaking ball. I wasn't calling pitches. We hadn't really talked that much at that point about pitch selection, but it was every 0-1 count was a curveball after they threw a fastball that the guy was late on. So that was a good learning experience for them in terms of like, you don't have to throw a curveball every single time that you're ahead. I think that's kind of like a high school mentality. It's all right, I threw a fastball away and he was a little late and hit it foul. Like, you can throw the same pitch again or throw a fastball in. Like, you can just keep throwing it, make them prove they can hit it. So it was a good learning experience for them.
Yeah, and I think that takes a long time to just figure it out. I know that for me, I kind of like gradually got better, all that stuff, and then in the Atlantic League those last 3 years, I feel like my awareness and my acuity for spotting like stuff the hitters were doing, and like it just exponentially took off, and it became way faster. Like, my brain just got way better at processing stuff that, oh, he's late, his bat looks a little draggy, like his hands drop a little bit inside fastball. All right, he swung here. It just like becomes, and it's just processing power over time. But I feel like you have to be put in pressure situations, and also being reinforced, and be reinforced by bad results, and like by failure and consequences, and feeling like, for me, I feel like when my job was on the line in pro baseball, that to me like kicked in new gears every year because I wanted to keep my job. So like, if I screwed up once, I did not forget how I screwed up, and it was I might screw up again, but it'd be different. And I think sometimes, I don't know, maybe you can speak to this at the college level, like they have 4 years at your program. You wonder if they feel like this little nerfy kind of comfort, like, ooh, I'm not going to get released. But whereas, like you pitch bad in pro ball, like, you're gone. So I don't know. They obviously need that long learning curve, but I don't know. Do you feel like there's more comfort? Do you feel like they have less urgency because they know they're going to show up to the field tomorrow no matter what?
Yeah, I think you can remind them that 4 years isn't that long, and it kind of flies by. So And you do have to establish yourself. You got to, if you don't pitch or if you don't play as a freshman, like that next year is going to be even harder to crack the lineup or get on the mound. So it does happen quick. I think most of our guys, that's what it comes back to recruiting. Like you got to recruit the right kids that won't take that mindset of just being comfortable with, I'm a Division I player. That's what we ask all of our recruits that, like, what are your goals? Like, do you want to just be a D1 player, or do you want to be the best in the world? And, if they don't say, I want to be a major leaguer, that's a little bit of a red flag to me. And it's not out of the picture. Like if you're getting recruited for, to play Division I, you have the ability to be a major leaguer.
For sure.
So not that I cross guys off the list if they don't say, like, I want to win the Cy Young. Cause some guys just don't know that yet. And they don't know how actually close it is if they can put themselves in a good routine and get into a good program. And, but I don't think they're almost too uncomfortable at times, like our guys, because they push themselves too much. They're too hard on themselves because they want to be able to, get out on the field and have all the glory of being a stud on the team. And I think that's a good trait to have as long as you can harness it. And, we have a lot of talks with our guys about, like, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail way more than you did in high school. So, you're going to have to learn to deal with it. Like you getting pissed off after a bad outing, or, striking out, that's fine. But how long are you going to do it? And is that helping you in your next at bat? Is that helping in your next outing? And that goes back to all the mental stuff, like, removing negative thoughts, and then, changing your perception and moving on. But I don't think guys, the right kids, they don't get too comfortable. And if they are, then, they'll probably never play.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. I think that reframing mindset is really essential. I know our mutual friend, Zach, he and I were talking about it recently, and it's just like a subconscious thing that you just find some way when things are really bad to find, like, well, okay, well, now I have more time to do this. Like when I was injured with Tommy John, like obviously I had that twice, and both times I was like, I get a chance to like remake my mechanics. And back then I didn't know, like, there wasn't the internet like there is today in 2008. Like you couldn't find all the stuff to like do that you could today. It was harder, but I still felt like I know I have some flaws that I've found through various books and my coaches and like online stuff. I know that I have some flaws that now I can spend 3 months against my wall fixing the way I break my hands, that I know that I couldn't have fixed it before that. And just like little stuff like that as I look back, I realized that was really like probably a weapon that I had to like insulate myself against failure and against dropping out of like the long-term race. Like it's just because if you don't find the bright side in things, and just even like the little battles, like what did I do well today? Like even though I gave up a bunch of runs, like my fastball was good, or my changeup was like better than it's ever been. Like I threw some really good curveballs, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. When you find some way to just reframe that situation into a negative, into something you can do better, or just like an opportunity, or just finding a positive that allows you to stay positive, I think that's really big. I wonder, can you find any of that? How much of their personality and their mental makeup can you really figure out in the recruiting process? It's got to be pretty tough, I imagine.
Yeah, that's really tough. I don't think it's that tough. You just got to got to be personable with them and just get to know them, kind of deep down as best you can. I don't know, not like asking personal questions, but just legitimately getting to know them as a person. And, aside from their baseball accolades, and just get a feel for, sometimes it's, you can ask coaches about them, and, usually coaches are, they want what's best for the kid, or, they're going to kind of upgrade them a little bit in their reports. Some of them don't. But kind of trust in your eyes, and trust in what you feel, I think, is important. because if you talk to all their coaches, they're going to be the best kid ever and blah, blah, blah. No offense to any of the coaches. But, just trust in your eyes in terms of their talent and trust in, your gut, of just what you feel when you talk to them, as this kid, because some kids, you talk to them on the phone and it's like, all right, that was a tough conversation. And then you got to figure out, okay, why? Is it because he's legitimately a bad person, or is it because, he just wasn't brought up the same way that I was, and we don't have the same things in common. It doesn't mean that they're a terrible kid. They just might have different circumstances. And I think once you start to get deep down into it and get to know them, you can you'll see a lot of, I have a lot of faith in guys, even if they have, like they don't know how to talk to you on the phone, that's not their fault. And you can see if they have like deep down qualities that, you can kind of polish them as a person, more importantly. And that they're going to put in the work. That's important.
Yeah. So if you had any last advice as we kind of wrap up here for someone who wants to be in your position as a pitching coach or wants to be a pro ball player like you did, and you played two-way in college, which was impressive. You're a D1 athlete at UConn, played two-way. Or if they want to just play college baseball in general, like what kind of advice do you have to one day become one of the things that Kevin Vance was? Because you wear a lot of hats.
I would watch a ton of baseball. Obviously the season's over, but watch the World Series, watch as much as you can. I think that's kind of lost in terms of just seeing what big leaguers do, because they're there for a reason. Surround yourself with people that are better than you at baseball and know more about baseball than you. And so watching guys, getting yourself in the right place, and developing a routine and sticking to it. It's one thing to, say that you're going to do this on Twitter and, and pump yourself up on social media, but to actually do it, if you did it or not. But just, working hard. I think if you don't have anyone in your life that can help you in baseball, you gotta try and find it, and you can find it on TV, just watching guys and kind of just, you can mimic what big leaguers are doing. You can watch their movements and their, how they go about their business, and, watch college baseball too. Watch everything that you can. I think, especially today with, the internet and video, and you can watch pretty much anything you need. You'd be surprised how much I just Google, how to throw a curveball. Like, you can Google that and
my article's going to come up. Number one, better.
Yeah, you can Google everything, like, how to throw harder. Some of those might not be the best things to read, but, shuffle through, keep an open mind, but, be a sponge and just find the things that you can relate to and start to apply them. Stay athletic, maybe, play multiple sports, just stay athletic. And that's what I think. That's all I got for advice. Be yourself, trust yourself.
And I think that's underrated because, as far as, this was in like a recent post somewhere, I was just talking about one of the unifying qualities, I think, of really high performers, people that make it a long time and whatever it is that they do, is just like this mentality that I don't know how to do something, I'm going to go find out how to do it. And like you said, that's watching baseball, that's scouring the internet, that's scouring, like, there's so much more. That's kind of what I was talking about with my surgery, how I could like remake my mechanics when I was hurt. Like, there's so many more rocks to flip over now. Like, if you want to know how to do something. And that's why I feel like a lot of times when people will ask me something or they'll ask you something, you'll kind of be like, why don't you already know the answer to this? Like, you could have like Googled this. You could like this is an easily accessible answer. And you probably appreciate that people will come to you with it, but you're also kind of maybe confused, like I am sometimes, where you're like, if you really wanted to know this, you'd know this already. Like, if I wanted to know this, I would have known this already. I wouldn't have had to ask you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like everyone who really wants to be great at something, they seem to find a way to do it. They're up late, scouring YouTube or reading books. They're doing whatever it is to try to find it. Like, they can figure it out. You can watch big leaguers and you can study them, and you can just, your body will assemble itself, right? Like, I love when people talk about that with little kids. Like, just teach your little kid, just tell them to throw rocks hard at stuff. Because it does. It teaches you how to. It's like outcome oriented, and they learn decent mechanics from that. Like, you go to the Dominican Republic. You went to Colombia this winter. Is that right?
Puerto Rico.
You probably saw tons of kids that had like nothing, equipment wise and instruction wise, that were just good, right? So they just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's
kids are awesome. Kids are really smart. They can pick up on things if you just kind of let them go and play. But yeah, like if you hand a 7-year-old kid a bat, he's gonna swing. You know, he's gonna have a really good bat path naturally, I think.
Perfect launch angle, man. Perfect.
Yeah. His bat is gonna be through the zone long. He's not gonna do anything stupid. He's gonna hit the ball and keep it simple. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that one.
So where can our readers and not readers, listeners and viewers, because this will be on iTunes and all the podcast places in audio land, and then also on YouTube here, where can people follow up with you on what social medias do you lurk upon?
I am on Twitter, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. That's kind of weird though.
Don't LinkedIn Mr. Vance.
Don't Facebook me either. I probably won't accept it unless we have a bunch of mutual friends. No, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I think my Twitter is sorry about it 10 is my Twitter handle.
Okay,
it goes way back. Coach_Vance 10 on Instagram. Got some good pictures up. I got some gorilla pictures on there. I love gorillas.
What are you squatting these days?
Ooh, June 1st, I squatted 465, I think.
That's it. Come on,
yeah.
Bro. I thought I saw a video of you doing five plates, 5 wheels on there.
I deadlifted 510.
Okay, not terrible.
Yeah,
not terrible.
Yeah, I've been to the 500 club before, back in my prime, but I'm out of it now.
465 is still pretty freaking strong, so pretty solid. All right, man. Well, hey, appreciate you coming back on the show. First three-peat. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. And
thanks for having me.
Best of luck out there in Rhody Rams, not the Rhody Huskers.
Rhody Rams. Go Rhody.
All right. So thanks again. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher. Leave us a review if you hated, love the show, whatever. But I want to thank Kevin Vance for coming on again. It's great having guests. I've kind of took a sabbatical, and it's amazing getting other guys' experience and their life lessons from just, like I said, Kevin's been around, D1 athlete, both sides of the baseball, hitter and pitcher in college, pro pitcher, and now a Division I pitching coach. So thanks again to Kevin, and we'll see you here next week on Dear Baseball Gods.